The photograph sits in the archives, its sepia tones faded but still clear. 3 young girls stare at the camera. They wear fine Edwardian dresses, their hair carefully styled. The studio stamp on the back reads Sterling Photography, 1902. The handwritten note beneath it identifies them as the daughters of Killian and Adelina Walsh, but there is a problem, a big problem. The 1900 Federal Census, taken just 2 years before this photograph, lists only 2 daughters in the Walsh household, not 3. 2. This is not a small discrepancy. This is a missing child. The question is simple but troubling. Was the census wrong? Was a child hidden from the official record? Or is the photograph itself not what it seems? Grady, a historical genealogist, takes on the investigation. He begins with the 2 primary documents: the photograph and the census. Both are real. Both are dated. Both cannot be fully true at the same time. The search for the 3rd daughter begins. Killian Walsh and his wife Adelina were a respectable family in their county. They owned a modest home. Killian worked as a clerk. Adelina managed the household. By all accounts, they were ordinary people living ordinary lives. The 1900 census tells their story in neat official columns. Raedlin, an archivist at the County Historical Society, pulls the record from the microfilm. The page is legible. The handwriting is clear. The enumerator visited the Walsh home in June of 1900. Household members listed: Killian Walsh, age 32, head of household; Adelina Walsh, age 29, wife; Rebecca Walsh, age 5, daughter; Heidi Walsh, age 1, daughter. That is all. 4 people, 2 parents, 2 children. No one else is recorded in the home, no servants, no boarders, no other children. Ryland makes a copy of the page. The record is official. It was created by a government enumerator who visited the home in person. The census was not a survey. It was not voluntary. It was a legal requirement. Every person living in a household was supposed to be recorded. Errors happened, of course. Enumerators made mistakes. Names were misspelled. Ages were wrong. But omitting an entire child who lived in the home, that was not a common error. That was not a small mistake. Grady takes the photograph to Kylo, a photo analyst who specializes in historical images. Kylo examines the portrait under magnification. He studies the girls' faces, their clothing, their posture. The 3 girls sit on a bench. The eldest sits on the left. The youngest sits on the right. The 3rd girl, the mystery girl, sits in the middle. Kylo estimates their ages based on their appearance. The eldest appears to be about 7 years old. The youngest appears to be about 3 years old. The middle girl appears to be about 5 years old. Grady does the math. If the photograph was taken in 1902, the eldest would have been born around 1895. The youngest would have been born around 1899. The middle girl would have been born around 1897. Rebecca, the eldest daughter from the census, was born in 1895. Heidi, the youngest daughter from the census, was born in 1899. The ages match. But who is the middle girl? Kylo points out other details. All 3 girls wear similar dresses. The fabric is expensive. The lace is fine. The dresses were custom-made, likely by the same seamstress. This suggests they were all from the same family, not a mix of relatives or friends. He also notes the physical resemblance. The 3 girls share similar facial features: the shape of their noses, the set of their eyes, the curve of their chins. They look like sisters. Ryland returns to explain the census process. In 1900, census enumerators went door to door. They asked questions. They recorded answers. The head of household, usually the father, provided the information. The questions were specific: name, age, relationship to the head of household, marital status, occupation, literacy, birthplace. Children were recorded if they lived in the home on the day of the census. This was critical. The census was a snapshot of a single day. If a child was away, visiting relatives or staying elsewhere, they might be recorded at that other location instead. But errors did happen. Some families lied. Some enumerators skipped houses. Some records were lost. The census was not perfect. Still, omitting a 5-year-old daughter who lived at home? That was not just an error. That was an absence. Grady begins searching vital records for the county. He looks for birth certificates, death certificates, any official document that might explain the missing girl. He finds the birth record for Rebecca Walsh, born March 1895, to Killian and Adelina Walsh. He finds the birth record for Heidi Walsh, born November 1899, to Killian and Adelina Walsh. He does not find a birth record for a third daughter. He searches under different spellings. He searches neighboring counties. He searches for any Walsh child born between 1896 and 1898. Nothing matches. He also searches death records. Perhaps the third daughter was born after the census but died before the photograph. Perhaps she was born before the census but died as an infant, and the family never spoke of her. But there is no death record, no infant burial, no notation of a child who died young. The records confirm what the census said. 2 daughters, only 2. Yet the photograph clearly shows 3. Grady visits the local historical society again. This time, he asks Rylan if there are any personal papers from the Walsh family. Letters, diaries, anything that might provide context. Rylan leads him to a small collection. It contains a few letters, some receipts, a wedding announcement. The collection was donated years ago by a distant relative. Grady sits at a table and begins reading. Most of the letters are mundane. Discussions of weather, requests for recipes, notes about church events. Then he finds it, a letter from Adelina Walsh to her sister, Julieta, dated September 1901. The letter is written in neat cursive on thin stationery. Adelina writes about her health, about Killian's work, about the children. And then, near the end, she writes this: "I think of her every day. I pray that one day I will have all my girls together under one roof. I know it is not possible now, but I hold on to hope." Grady reads the sentence again. All my girls. Not both my girls, all. This is the first direct evidence from the family that a third daughter existed. Adelina knew. Adelina grieved. Adelina hoped. But why was the girl not in the home? Why was she not on the census? The letter was addressed to Julieta, Adelina's sister. Grady considers a new possibility. Perhaps the third girl in the photograph was not a daughter at all. Perhaps she was a cousin, a niece, a relative visiting for the portrait. He asks Eduardo, another genealogist, to trace Julieta's family tree. Eduardo is thorough. He searches census records, marriage records, birth records. He finds Julieta's family quickly. She married a man named Ricardo. They had 3 children. One of them was a daughter named Aria, born in 1897. Grady does the math. Aria would have been 5 years old in 1902, the same age as the mystery girl in the photograph. The theory makes sense. Aria could have been visiting her aunt Adelina. The photographer could have included her in the portrait with her cousins. The 3 girls would have been close in age, close in appearance. It would explain everything. Grady feels a surge of hope. This could be the answer. Eduardo locates the 1900 census record for Julieta and Ricardo's family. Aria is listed there, living with her parents in a town 30 miles away. She was not living with the Walsh family. But that does not disprove the theory. She could have visited in 1902. The census was taken in 1900. The photograph was taken in 1902. There is no contradiction yet. Grady asks Rylan to search the archives for any other photographs of Julieta's family. Rylan finds one. A portrait of Julieta and her children, taken in 1903. Aria is in the photograph. Grady brings both photographs to Kylo. He asks Kylo to compare the image of Araya in the 1903 portrait to the mystery girl in the 1902 portrait. Kylo examines both images carefully. He measures the distance between the eyes. He studies the shape of the face. He compares the hairline. After an hour, he gives his conclusion. The two girls are not the same person. The facial features do not match. The mystery girl in the Walsh portrait is not Araya. The cousin theory is wrong. Grady sits in his office, surrounded by papers. He has spent weeks on this investigation. He has examined every document. He has followed every lead. He has tested every theory. The photograph shows 3 daughters. The census shows 2 daughters. The birth records show 2 daughters. The mother's letter implies 3 daughters. The cousin theory has been disproven. The evidence is in conflict. Irreconcilable conflict. There is a 3rd daughter. Adelina said so. The photograph shows it. But where was she? Why was she not recorded? Grady feels the frustration rising. He is missing something. There is a piece of this puzzle he has not found. He decides to go back to the beginning, back to the census. Grady returns to the county archives. He asks Ryland to pull the 1900 census records again. Not just the population schedule, all of it. Ryland is confused. The population schedule is the main record. That is where households are listed. What else is there? Grady explains. The census had other schedules, special schedules. They were used to count specific populations. People in institutions, people in prisons, people in hospitals. Ryland nods slowly. He goes to the back of the archives. He returns with a different box. Inside are the special schedules for the county. Grady opens the first folder. It is labeled Inhabitants in Institutions. He begins reading. The list includes the county jail, the county hospital, the county poor farm, and the county home for incurables. He scans the names. Most are adults, a few are elderly, some are children, and then he sees it. Esme Walsh. Age 3. Daughter of Killian and Adelina Walsh. Resident of the county home for incurables since 1898. Grady stares at the page. His hands are shaking. She was there. She was always there. She was counted, she was recorded. But she was not in the household census. She was in the institutional census. The mystery is solved. Grady contacts Aisha, a social historian who specializes in early 20th century family structures. He asks her to explain the county home for incurables. He asks her to explain why a child would be placed there. Aisha explains carefully. At the turn of the 20th century, medical knowledge was limited. Children born with significant physical disabilities or cognitive impairments had few options. There were no therapies. There were no special schools. There were no support systems. Families faced a difficult choice. They could care for the child at home, which required constant attention and resources, or they could place the child in an institution where trained staff could provide care. The county home for incurables was such an institution. It housed people with chronic illnesses, disabilities, and conditions that could not be cured. Some residents were elderly, some were children. They lived there permanently. Aisha also explains the social stigma. Families were often ashamed of having a child with a disability. They believed it reflected poorly on them. They worried about judgment from neighbors, from church members, from society. Some families chose not to speak about these children. They visited them privately. They did not mention them in casual conversation, and when the census enumerator came to the door, they did not list them as part of the household. Legally, this was not incorrect. The census recorded people based on where they lived on census day. Esme lived at the county home. She was counted there. She was not counted at home because she did not live at home. The census was not wrong. It was just incomplete. The letter from Adelina takes on new meaning. I pray that one day I will have all my girls together under one roof." She was not speaking hypothetically. She was speaking about Esme. She wanted her daughter home. She wanted her family whole. But it was not possible. Not in 1901. Not in that time. Not in that world. Grady looks at the photograph again. He sees it differently now. This was not a casual portrait. This was not a simple family photograph. And this was something more. In 1902, Killian and Adelina made a decision. They went to the county home for incurables. They brought Esme home for the day. They dressed her in a fine dress identical to her sister's dresses. They took her to Sterling Photography. They sat all three daughters on the bench. Rebecca on the left, Esme in the middle, Heidi on the right. The photographer set up his camera. He adjusted the light. He asked the girls to sit still. He took the photograph. It was the only time all three sisters were together. It was the only time Adelina had all her girls under one roof. The photograph was not a deception. It was not a fiction. It was a statement of fact. It was a declaration. "These are my daughters, all three of them. This is my family. This is the truth." The official records obscured that truth. The census separated them. The birth records were incomplete. The social stigma silenced them. But the photograph spoke. It preserved what the records could not. It showed what society tried to hide. Adelina made sure the photograph was labeled correctly. The daughters of Killian and Adelina Walsh. Not two daughters. The daughters. All of them. She knew the world would not remember Esme. She knew the records would not tell the full story. But the photograph would. The photograph would survive. The photograph would speak for her. And it did. Grady sits back in his chair. The investigation is complete. The mystery is solved. The missing daughter has been found. Esme Walsh was born in 1897. She lived at the county home for incurables from 1898 until her death, which records show occurred in 1911. She was 14 years old. Her sisters, Rebecca and Heidi, went on to live full lives. They married, they had children, they grew old. But Esme remained hidden. Not from her family. They knew. They visited. They loved her. She was hidden from history, from the official story, from the narrative that most people would see. The 1900 census told one version of the Walsh family. 2 parents, 2 daughters, a complete household. The 1902 photograph told another version. 2 parents, 3 daughters, a complete family. Both were true, but only one showed the whole truth. Grady writes his final report. He includes copies of the census, the photograph, the letter, the institutional records. He explains the context. He explains the choice the family made. He explains why the records did not match. He ends with a reflection. Photographs are not just images. They are evidence. They are testimony. They are voices from the past. Sometimes those voices tell us things the official records cannot. Sometimes they reveal what was hidden. Sometimes they show us the families that existed outside the boundaries of what was socially acceptable or officially recorded. The Walsh family portrait of 1902 is one of those photographs. It is a document of love, of defiance, of truth. It is a reminder that the official story is not always the complete story, that the records are not always accurate, that some truths are only preserved in the images families chose to create and keep. Grady posts his findings online. He includes the photograph. He includes the documents. He tells the story of the 3 Walsh sisters. The response is immediate. People write to him. They share their own stories. They talk about relatives who were hidden. They talk about family members who were institutionalized. They talk about the photographs in their own albums that do not match the official records. One woman writes about her great-aunt who was sent away to a home for the deaf. She was never mentioned in family conversations. But there is a photograph of her, sitting with her siblings, smiling. Another man writes about his grandfather's brother who had epilepsy. He lived in a state hospital. The family visited him every month. But when people asked how many children his great-grandparents had, they said 3, not 4, 3. The stories pour in, the hidden children, the forgotten relatives. The family members who existed in photographs but not in official memory. Grady realizes this is not just the Walsh family's story. This is a pattern. This is a phenomenon. This is a piece of history that has been overlooked. He decides to continue his research. He will search for more families like the Walshes, more photographs that do not match the census, more children who were counted in institutions but not in homes. He ends his online post with a question: what hidden truths might be waiting in your own family albums? The official records only tell one part of the story. The photographs tell the rest. Look at your family photographs carefully. Count the children. Compare them to the census records. See if the numbers match. If they do not match, ask why. Search the institutional records. Search the special schedules. Search the places history tends to forget. You might find a missing relative. You might find a hidden story. You might find a truth that your family has been waiting to tell. The past is not as simple as the records suggest. The families were not as neat as the census makes them seem. The truth is in the details. The truth is in the contradictions. The truth is in the photographs that do not match the official story. Find those photographs. Tell those stories. Bring those hidden relatives back into the light. They deserve to be remembered. They deserve to be counted. They deserve to be part of the family story. Just like Esme Walsh, just like the third sister in the 1902 portrait, just like all the children who were loved but hidden, remembered but forgotten, photographed but erased. Bring them home. Tell their stories. Make them visible again. That is how we honor the past. That is how we complete the record. That is how we tell the whole truth.